recording, right? So everybody's got that. Can I get the lights? Thank you very much. Just the two on the wall is terrific. Thank you, thank you. So we were talking about the symbolist movement on Friday, and we didn't quite finish it up, so we'll wrap that up today. It's in many ways, symbolism as a movement is 1880s, 1890s, early 20th century. Symbolism as a movement is a great preamble, if you will, to modern art. Oftentimes it's taught at the end of the 19th century, but really many of the themes that we'll see develop in modern art, the groundwork is laid here, right? So, and really developing out of close impression. So the interest in subjectivity that we saw with Van Gogh is developed even further with Gauguin and with the symbolists with Verdon as well. A return from direct observation to subject matter that comes out of literature and mythology. That's also something new, right? And it comes in with the symbolist movement, and that conscious addressing of earlier traditions, not which are different, right? That's an element of modern art as well. And it comes back to sort of what we saw with René, which is that modern art is aware of its place in the history of art, but it's also very much aware of what it's doing to symbolism in the past, right? And so the symbols are very much doing that. So, you know, Gauguin with this thinking that's based on Eve or Venus, but different, right? Verdon giving us Pandora with her box, but different, right? I got a better picture of this. I got lost at the National Gallery. I got a really good picture of this. I didn't bring it in. Dang, right? It's about 6 feet tall, right? It's really terrific, right? And so the other thing we're talking about that will be important for many of our early modernists, Picasso in particular, is the idea of the femme fatale, a woman whose actions cause problems for humanity, right? Particularly for men, this is really misogynist, right? Like it's on your fault. I'm sorry, that's just the way they think. I don't believe it. That's what they said, right? So the what do you want to call it? It's called the fatal woman, right? It's not a version of fatal. Pardon? She changes fate, exactly right. The woman who changes fate. And so Eve certainly falls into that, Pandora falls into that as well. Are elements of it. Now, there are other offshoots of the symbolist movement. If you think about symbolism, this is correlated symbols. Remember that Verdon was the original president of the symbolist group in Paris, right? There was a group identity. It did have a manifesto. It started the same year as the Impressionists ended in 1886. So there was this group with a group identity. But the ideas that formulated symbolism, interest in metaphysics, right? The spiritual world writ large, not allied to any one religion, right? An interest in the spiritual, an interest in dreams and escaping the physical realm, an interest in subjectivity, which is obviously what dreaming is all about, is subjectivity, right? These sorts of ideas carry over into other groups that are affiliated with the symbolists and are often best discussed under that umbrella. Right? So Verdon actually shared an apartment with a couple of artists in Paris, working very, very closely, not apartment, studio, working very closely with them right around 1890. And one of them is Edward Vuillard, the V is silent, the elder, we are. Right? Who we are. Say it out loud. Who we are. We are. Right? Edward Vuillard. He's part of a group that's known as Les Nabis. Or Les Nabis, actually, pronounced yes, because the word comes from Hebrew. And also, I believe it's also in Arabic as well. It means prophet. The prophet. And if you think about this interest of the symbolist in a dream state with subjective vision, there's a better than a prophet, right? A prophet who sees the future, who escapes the physical bounds of day-to-day life, and in fact finds something else. So, as I said, I've lost my notes now. We are part of this group, Les Nabis, right? Seeking the spiritual in everyday elements. That's kind of what they're looking for, right? This is a prophet seeks past the world around him to something, a better future, if you will, or a different future. The Nabis are looking beyond the world around to something different. And so, if we look at we are, you guys say, oh, okay, what? So what? But look at the degree to which we are the world. And translate it into a series of patterns. Look at the wallpaper, for example, and how it almost kind of melds into the newspaper she's reading. How there's a certain element of mystery that comes out of the way he's blocked the composition. To where we see her, but we don't see her. Right? We don't really know what she's engaged with within that newspaper. And then the window behind the table that opens out to a quasi-mysterious nature outside. Everything becomes sort of covered in sort of this, what do you want to say, like a screen of patterns. A screen of texture and color. That adds to a sort of, brings a sense of mystery to the everyday. And that's in fact what the Nabis do. We'll look only two of them, but there was a group that told them something. We'll look at the two sort of heavy hitters. So it works this way often, and it's often working on pieces of cardboard as well. So sometimes you'll see the cardboard coming through from the back. Let's see it, just scratch the stuff in your hand because he's going out and sliding directly in. So if you look at text like this, right down here by the chair in the foreground, right, it becomes difficult to read as a description of things that exist in space. So I'm going to read this right here. Difficult to read as a description of objects in space. But at the same time, a really terrific sense of patterns and textures and colors across the surface. He's rendering the world around him mysteriously. Right? He's bringing it out of the ordinary and finding something extraordinary in it. Here's one that's uncovered. These are often very, very small. This one's not like this. Right? A lot of the really tiny are. Where again, okay, so a woman leaning over a table, setting places at the table, probably a maid. Right? But again, that everyday scene, this sort of quotidian thing that you might notice any given day, is rendered so much more elusively, evocatively, to the point where it seems, one, preternaturally still, quiet. But at the same time, within that ritual of daily activity, there's something else going on. And think about our daily activities being a ritual. What are rituals? They are artificial. They're experienced in a way. And so, we end up with this, it violates again the sense of space. You know from just the outline only that she's bending forward in the way that she's back and forth like this. And those are the pieces of a bare cardboard showing through, right? But that ends up violating that, doesn't it? It ends up becoming this sort of cutout shape there. Or he's not trying to render the chair properly. Not that he can't, he's not trying to. Right? That's not the agenda. The agenda is to fit these, and then the pattern of wallpaper, a fantastic pattern of wallpaper behind it. That sort of subsumes the entirety of everything. So this just needs to sort of float there across the surface. And what is normal becomes extraordinary. Right? What is everyday becomes special. Right? I quite adore who we are, and I wish we could sort of just do. It makes me want to paint, right? Because they make it look so darned easy. Just get out some red and green, go on a piece of cardboard, and you're done, right? I know, we all know it doesn't work that way. But also, it makes you want to look more closely. And that's what I think I like so much about who we are is that it achieves so well what our truth sees anyway, which is that you look at the everyday, you look at the world around you, and after looking at who we are, you see them in a way you hadn't seen them before. And you think about things you wouldn't have thought of if you hadn't looked at this we are. Right? You start to think, oh, wow, I look at James here, and, you know, if I was to draw it the way I would see it with all the square around it, then you'd be one side. But if I'm contrary, all of a sudden you're bigger, you know? And our vision is really much more subjective than we give it credit for. Because you focus on it, right? I see the triangles on your shirt, right? And those all of a sudden become more obvious. And what we are doing here, right? He sees that color in the wallpaper, and he amplifies it. Because that's what he's really interested in. That's that subjectivity of vision. That's so much part of what's developing as modern art. As I mentioned, working in close tandem, the other major member of the Navis is Pierre Bonnard, who has an amazing long career. And almost all the people that we're talking about, not all of them, but many of these people that we're talking about at the end of the 19th century, have careers that transcend the symbolist movement. Now, Gauguin died, I think it was Symbolist, I'm not 100% sure, in 1903. Cézanne died in 1906. Van Gogh already back in the 19th century, 1889, right? 1890. But Bonnard lived till 1940s, 1946, right? Lived past World War II. I have a son before I'm not even talking World War II. And Bonnard outlived the class, right? But early on, 1890, he and we are working elbow to elbow. We're very, very close, right? And he's doing the same thing we are doing. He's looking at the world around him, and he is seeing it as, I don't know, manifestations of a greater mystery. So in this case, he doesn't have the pattern that we are does. He doesn't have that intricacy of interlocking colors and shapes. You know, they're very intricate, tightly knit like a textile that we are. But what he does have is this sense of looking at the boulder and looking at the street and thinking of it as this sort of strange and mysterious, kind of wonderful place. Right? So as you ever went to this class, I love dogs, right? It's great dogs, yeah. And look at how beautifully they're rendered. Look at the one that's turning over his left shoulder. But look at how he's painted that dog. He hasn't. Right? He's got the outline, which appears to be a reserved space for the dog on the canvas. And then he painted that peach color over the top of it. And left just the outline. So there's no modeling to that dog in the foreground. Right? The peach one. The orange one. There's no modeling to it all. There's no chiaroscuro. There's no light and dark in that dog whatsoever. Any sense of three-dimensionality comes through your understanding of how he turns his face. And maybe the thickness and thinness of that outside look. Right? And that's what achieves it. So he's not rendering it the way it looks to his eye. Right? He's bringing something to it, and these something, and add to that this empty street, this unnaturally empty street, with the wheelbarrow we assume of like the trash sweeper, right, on the sidewalk. So there's no one to be seen. All of the windows are shuttered up. The majority of them are, right? This is a mysterious, quiet place. Now, not all the sources, right? They'll be seen in the parade, but they still tend to bring to these everyday scenes this odd sense of, what do I want to say, potential. I don't want to say foreboding, because that sounds too mean, you know, it sounds too evil. But maybe that's part of it, that something's going to happen. Right? And we don't know what it is yet. There's some mystery. Right? There's nothing here. I'd never seen this before last fall when they opened up the new East Building at the National Gallery. It was fantastic. Of the inside of Bonnard's studio. Where again, that sense of the everyday suffused with and viewed with mystery. The mystery of potential, the mystery of the unknown. The curtain pulled back on the window, and we see the street very similar to the street with the dogs, but again, it's a lot of blank facades. Right? When you think about the idea of a facade, what is it? We use the term, right? The term is a French word for face. Right? We use it as part of a building, a facade. But they talk about putting up a facade. I don't want to know if I really am. I'm also a facade. You also, Mark the Jackass, and he's not here all the time. But some people have seen him. Yeah. Go on and study abroad with Mark the Jackass. Right? But look, the other thing that adds to that mystery. Look at the right corner, a woman. Right? Who is this? It's a woman.
I know that it looks like the Isabel novel. That's what I think of when I see Annabelle. Yeah, the haunted doll. It's like a creepy doll that tries to kill people.
Like Chucky.
I didn't think that so much. I feel like for those who got in the paper, and there are some of you in this class that maybe can't take this class. The idea of using cropping in the frame is a way of adding meaning to the work. The fact that through that cropping and through the way he treats her face as well, which is like the dog sketch, right? Add to this sense of mystery. In addition to that, kind of overall blue tonality, about 3 years ahead of Picasso that way, right? Picasso starts doing blue pictures. I don't know if you knew Bogart's work or not, right? But that adds to this sort of mystery of the everyday, which is a hallmark of this symbolist movement, and it's particularly the Nabis, right? I'm bringing in a few more Bonnards. Like I said, he lived forever, had a very, very long career. But you can see what happens in the 20th century is that this gives way to brighter colors. Bonnard, after World War I, World War I, 1914 to 18. After World War I, his colors get incredibly saturated, incredibly rich. Probably because he's become friends with Matisse, who we'll look at later this morning, this afternoon. But over and above that, it just comes to the hallmark of his career. And he loves these open windows where, again, there's this sort of mysterious exterior stuff. You wouldn't call him a Nabis in the 20s, but the legacy today. The pattern beneath the windows is purple and oranges, right? Adds to that strangeness. The way he treated the reflection on the glass of the window that goes on your body. And you don't know what's reflecting, it becomes this sort of muffled pattern. And then there's another woman, all but cut off in the lower right corner. What if you know he's acting playing with the Jew, right? There's that little black cat jumping up on there. But she's sleeping and it's about to disturb this thing. But still, there's something very odd about the way these frames are in there that suggests, if you think about it, what does that do? It suggests that there's a world beyond the picture, doesn't it? In this case, it's a physical thing. But if we think about that, it's augmenting this agenda that the symbolists have to find a world beyond the ordinary, right? These things then kind of work hand in hand. So it suggests more than it shows. Okay? It's going to show some things, but it's going to tell us that there's more out there than that.
One last Bonnard, this is quite large actually. Seat over the left side, where again, you love these interiors, right? With walls parallel to the plane of the picture. We're looking down at the top of the table. I'm assuming it's a woman's toilet, right? A perfume table, dresser, perfume bottles. And then we see through it to a dressing room behind. And again, we see these colors blocking with these great, super saturated patterns. And then a woman doing her hair, presumably in front of a mirror, right? And all we see is just that. And it's a wonderful composition. Everything in this picture, really, is rectilinear. Everywhere we look, it's all straight lines, right? Except this. Right? That one serpentine line formed by her arm and her hip and her shin. Right? You get a little bit more over here, but the majority of the feeling of the picture is rectilinearity. And it's offset by this, again, mysterious, right? We see them and we don't see them. And on the same level, there's a sense that they don't see us either. You know, there's a lack of immediate communication that adds to this overall sense of mystery. So Bonnard, we are part of this offshoot group called Les Nabis. They're in Paris. That's where the home of the major symbolist group is as well. And Bonnard well outlives the movement deep into the 30s. I mean, Bonnard lives for a good long time as well. But usually when you see his work, you see stuff from the 90s. In Brussels, there was an offshoot of the symbolist movement as well. In fact, a strong symbolist offshoot in Brussels, and particularly right in Brussels. And the group called themselves the 20, right? And so Laura Cornell made that the 20. When they wrote it, they used the double X. That was their symbol, the SS. And Ensor is probably the most famous group of the 20, but there were others as well. And I'm writing in particular, almost time. But I wanted you to see because of different ways of approaching this question of mystery. This question of the everyday, of a melding of spiritualism and everyday events, of how one injects a sense of strangeness and mystery into a work of art. So, on the left, a prophecy of sorts of his own. He's not part of the Nabis movement, but it's a prophecy of sorts. In 1888, he paints a picture of Christ coming back. Right, the second coming of Christ, but he models it after biblical images of Christ entering Jerusalem. There's a long tradition of images of Christ coming into Jerusalem on a donkey, and the followers sort of laying down their cloaks in front of him. Right? This is what is reenacted on Palm Sunday during Easter week, right? Christ entry into Jerusalem. But he envisions it instead as Christ coming into Brussels, Christ entering Brussels. And he envisions it as if it's going to happen next year. Right? So 1888, he titles it The Entry of Christ into Brussels in 1889. So it's the second coming. And he said basically, if Christ were to come back to earth, the entire event, like Christ came to earth today, the entire event would be usurped, taken over by capitalism. It would just be exploited for money. It's very, very political statement, right? That instead of coming to help the poor, Jesus would be co-opted by corporations, right? And they would make him their own. And that's the theme he works out in both the huge picture, which is in the Getty Center in Malibu, California. Right? It's not huge, like that's the big problem. And a print that he did 10 years later, right? After the composition, where all of the details are replicated. So Jesus is right in the middle. Red halo. And he's coming towards you, right? So you're watching this parade coming into Brussels. There's really very little to identify it as Brussels per se. There's some houses that look faintly Belgian, right? But for the most part, there's no single thing that says it. And it is surrounded by musicians, but they're crazy looking. They're clowns and freaks and skeletons and people in masks that are all here parading with Christ. I want to show you a few details. On the right is an etching. Etchings are made by using acid to carve lines into a copper plate. Then you rub ink into the carved lines and polish it, and you press it into a piece of paper. Right? So it's monochrome, although you could rub in colored inks. And the bits that are white are the parts where you didn't do any carving. Right? That's what an etching is. And that's what we're going to look at because we're trying to focus primarily on things that are here. And I've got some details here, right? So, there's Christ. Right here. Right? And the put on the forward is that Viva and Sela e Jesus, right? Long live and Sail and Christ. And Sail was look this up, right? Was a contemporary political figure, right? So they've already wrapped him up into this modern politics, right? Great details everywhere. Keep in mind that in order to print, all this has to be done backwards, right? So all the letters are backwards. Every now and then it gets one wrong. Coleman's mustard, right? So you can go buy Coleman's powdered mustard in the grocery store, right? These are another political figure. The Samaritan, everything is all about modern politics, and most of our symbolists aren't really all that particularly political. Now, they wanted the world to change because of their art. They published the manifesto, right? Fanfare doctrinaire, doctrinary fanfare, the butchers of Jerusalem, right? And you see the essence is backwards. Viva Socialisme, the 20s, right? That's his movement. So that, right? And there it says, les vivisecteurs belges insensibles. He'd been kind of rejected by the 20s. By this point in his career, he didn't like having been treated by them. And he compares them to people who practice vivisection, live anatomical study on live animals, right? Which is still being done in later. He's very anti-vivisection. But he calls them the insensible Belgian vivisectors, the 20s, right? So they're there as well. He's separating himself from the movement. Flemish movement over here, right? Et cetera. So all these signs that are there in order to sort of add political content to it, right? And part of the noise, the tumult around the returning of Christ to, hail Jesus, King of Brussels, right? And they're funny as well. I mean, if you find this funny, it's on purpose, right? There's the whole Wagner section over here, the Solange Wagner. But I wanted to look at these masks in the foreground, this great skeleton of the top hat. Looks like Daniel Craig in the last, at the beginning of Spectre, in the last James Bond movie, where he's wearing the top hat and the mask and all the CG. So you can imagine this is the CGI of the 19th century, right? The world is just erupting around you. But these other figures with these amazing faces, look at this. Schnozzles, right? Over here. They're all crowns and buffoons and masks, and they just love masks. Yeah, they deserve each other. Over here, right? And being Belgian, right, he's looking back at certain traditions like Bruegel and Bosch from earlier Belgian art from the Renaissance. These are very much his inspirations in this, right? So I wanted to show these to you simply because it's a different way of approaching this whole symbolist thing, right? And he's a more ardent symbolist, more of a card-carrying symbolist than the Nabis were. Our last symbolist group that we'll look at is over in Germany, or particularly symbolist artists, and that's Munch, because, modern art, this is something you should see, right? You've all seen this before. It's everything from a coffee cup to a punching bag, I had a friend, my very good friend at grad school had a punching bag screen, right? You can punch him on his nose and squeeze. You punch him on the nose, he goes down and comes back up again, like that. And it's everything from that to Home Alone, right? This is Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, is this exactly close. Munch came from Norway, Oslo, and eventually settled in Berlin, which is where he makes this, but the landscape in the background is made of Oslo, right? So he's painting from memory. And it's quite obviously entirely subjective, right? People have tried to explain away that there was a volcanic eruption, that the sky might have appeared that way, but I'm sorry, I don't buy it. If it did, I don't care. That's not what he's trying to say. It is not representational. This is subjective. And the colors are chosen for their impact on the viewer, how they relate to emotions and feelings, in the same way that the forms are chosen for exactly that same reason, right? Why has his form become this sort of, I'll say it, he's a sperm, isn't he? And we'll see sperm in other works by Munch. But why does he become this teardrop figure, right? That's because, not because he saw that way, it's because he wants that form to have an impact. He wants that form to make you, to guide you in how to look at the picture. Right, how to read it. The anxiety that the figure feels. And again, it's this melding of everyday experience, walking along a pier, by a bay, city in the background, ships at port. That melded with an existential crisis. The unease that this figure feels. Right? And that unease that he feels within is projected outward into the world. So that all the world around him is in sync with his own anxiety. Now, Munch himself had quite a bit of anxiety. He came from a very strict family. His father his mother died young, his sister died young. I think both from tuberculosis, and within about a year of each other. And his dad said it was the family's fault for their sin. Yeah. Munch eventually became an alcoholic, but oddly lived all the way to the 40s, despite, doing his darndest to poison himself. And the anxiety that he felt in his everyday life started translating into this. He has at least 3 different versions of this. And one of the things I'd like to stress again for the studio art majors out there is one of the things we're going to see in modern art is the degree to which artists retreat themes. Take a theme and treat it and treat it and treat it again. That the idea that once you've done it, you're not done with it. That there's still potential there to be explored if you want to pick up the theme and do it again. So for Munch, this is the 3 versions. This is the most famous of the 3 versions that are done in color, but there's also a print version of it. And that's true for all of his works. He'll take a certain theme and rework it and rework it and rework it. Right. Now, this was originally planned as part of a 22-picture cycle that he called the Frieze of Life. Now, that term is well known to people who've taken a lot of art history. A frieze is a long row of images, right, that usually decorates a building. Right? So we see it on the Parthenon in ancient Greece. One continuous band of images. Right? Now, these aren't intended to be architectural decorations, and he does, by calling it the Frieze of Life, suggest that there's a sequencing, and they're meant to be seen side by side, left to right, as one big group of 22 pictures. Right? What's interesting is the scales and the sizes are all different, and there is no definitive answer to the sequencing. I don't think he ever planned that. He just sees them all. If you think about the frieze, our life is a frieze, isn't it? Birth to death. That's our frieze of life. Right? Life is everything between that. And we start here and we end up there. And I think he sees these pictures as all being part of it, but not necessarily with a chronology. Not necessarily with a narrative. So like I said, he did each one of these in multiple media. So on the left is a pastel on cardboard. The strip on the right was added later. You can even see the theme at the top. Right? If the composition wasn't done until he added that red strip down the side, he thought. But if you worked in woodcut, so this is where you cut away the whites, you print from the black. And you'll notice that, actually that's a lithograph. It looks like a woodcut. That's a lithograph. Which is treated stone that transfers ink. And it's titled in German because he's working in Berlin, Geschrei, which in German is cry, not scream. Everybody calls this the scream. But really the proper title is the cry. Right? Geschrei is the cry. And he works all of the themes from the Frieze of Life in multiple printmaking media, as well as in painting. Right? There's a Munch show up right now at the National Gallery. There's a little room, 2 rooms dedicated to Munch's color print. This one isn't out, but we have it. It was out a couple of years ago. From the Frieze of Life, the Kiss. One of the things we see here is perhaps a personal take on the Femme Fatale theme, where a moment of intimacy, one has to imagine this sort of almost like a tryst, right? A furtive coupling in the middle of the day. Because it's daylight out, right? This is like a sort of a naughty afternoon, right, affair. But as they embrace, their faces just meld together into one thing. To the point where it's almost as if Munch is seeing a similarity between an erotic embrace and a devouring. That the kiss becomes a consumption of sorts. Which in many ways, they are. You know, when you're intimate, that happens. You become one. And he understands that, but there's a certain dread to it, I think, as well. You can see the white spots and where his hand is behind her head, right? How her hands become almost like claws on his back. This is an etching with some plate tone left on the page. That's where you don't wipe it perfectly clean, right, and leave some of the stubble there to get it. This idea that they are devouring each other, that's a theme he works with a lot throughout his career. This one's out on display, where he started off just calling it an embrace, and then he changed the title to The Vampire, because he realized the erotic side of, and this is right around the time, when is Bram Stoker, when is Dracula? It's like 1880s, I think, right? Early 90s, late 80s. It's right at the same time as the symbolist movement, right? And so vampires are kind of everywhere. But so are blood-related diseases, right? Venereal disease is on a huge uprise at the end of the 19th century. So the idea that intimacy can be dangerous, right? Intimacy brings the potential for you're being consumed in a not particularly good way. Right? It's there. And here, I love the way her hair just wraps around it. Again, it's a print with colors that have been added to it. So her red hair, which is a long-standing artistic theme for seduction, for women of ill repute, going back to Mary Magdalene in the Middle Ages, was often depicted with red hair. Eve was often depicted with red hair. Right? For exactly that reason, redheads are dangerous. Right? That's the artistic theme. But here, as he falls into her arms with what could be seen as almost, some intimacy, some abandon, some trust. In fact, it's turned into the fact that it looks like she's digging her teeth into his neck. And the red hair suggests the flow of blood between them. Right? These, again, are all part of the frieze of life. And for Edvard Munch in the 90s, life is not entirely a happy thing. But again, that melding of everyday with the supernatural, right? That's a hallmark of the symbolist movement. Our last symbolist work, our last work by Munch, also out on display right now, is this colored lithograph of the Madonna. Now, the title Madonna is the title that he gave it. So he's again suggesting a femme fatale melded with an image of the most chaste and pure woman of all time, right? He's toying with that paradox, isn't he? That is both things at once. That women are equal parts seductresses and saints. And that's the same idea we thought this would be a great thing to bring back up Gauguin's self-portrait next to it, as saint and tempter, right? I had a grad school prof, Kurt Varnado, who used to be head of MoMA, Museum of Modern Art in New York, and he taught at my grad school for a while. Classes were packed because he was a really great lecturer. But he called this a close encounter of the you-know-what kind, right? Because it's obvious that what the scene that he's trying to get across here is an image of a erotic embrace. Not face-to-face anymore, but mid-copulation. And that's obviously emphasized by the sperm swimming around the border everywhere you look. And the baby in the lower right corner, the fetus. Right? It's intimacy, but fear of intimacy at the same time. Right? It's as erotic an image as we'll see in this class. Arching her back, right? Enjoying herself. It's as erotic an image as we're going to see. But at the same time, it is charged with utter anxiety and fear of intimacy. What a modern condition that is, right? Something we talked about with Danae. The condition of the modern city is to be so close to people, but so far from them, psychologically, right? You have to imagine that she's a professional, right? I like the fact, she's got her, to quote Prince, she's got a raspberry beret, on her head, right? She's still wearing her hat. Or is that a halo? You can read it both ways, right? It's a very modern image that addresses the in a way that makes you never really look at an image of the Madonna again the same way. And then there's our little fetus in the back. I thought this ethnographic museum that opened in Paris in the 1880s that had non-Western art from sort of Africa, Asia, various non-European places that Europe had colonized. And in the ethnographic museum was, in fact, a preserved fetus, and it looks just like that. Right? I know that Monk had gone to Paris. Right? I saw a photo of this one. I've never been able to relocate it to bring it in. But nonetheless, the idea of this poor, abandoned, right, lonely life in the lower left corner is part of the anxiety he's bringing to this image that we're looking at. Okay? So with the symbolist, we really are seeing, right, these stepping stones toward modernism, this interest in a deepened psychology, in an ever more personal expressionism, right? In a blurring of the distinction between the world we live in and the world of the supernatural. These things are all elements that are elaborated on by the different early modern groups. Now, we're going to move into the 20th century, move into modernism. You guys have read about Fauvism, I hope, using the online educational resources, right? You've got those to read ahead. What are some hallmarks, what are the characteristics of Fauvism? How would we identify a Fauve picture, a Fauvist picture? The one on the right is a Fauvist picture. So what's Fauve about Matisse? Yeah, James?
Subject, I mean, we like the door here, the door, side.
Okay. Excellent. So, okay, two things that James mentioned. One, he said not only the color, although I think the color is the big thing. But in addition, and we'll talk more about that, but in addition to the color, there is a conscious violation of the rules of proper draftsmanship, right? The ability to render objects in three dimensions, obeying the laws of perspective. Right? So James mentioned the doors on either side not really working visually. Right? You can read the picture, can you? It's an open window, so we're standing in front of a double-doored glass window that has been opened, and we see beyond it, down below, the little balcony with flowers and a railing. Read that okay? And beyond, the harbor with boats, right? Clouds in the sky. Okay? Now, it's rendered very abstractly, but it's not impossible to read, right? So James mentioned that with that movement into space, there's something that's wrong with it. It doesn't quite move into space one. What about the colors? What typifies colors for Matisse and the Fauves? What characterizes them?
And they're like accurate to everyday life, but more towards like the feeling and how they feel about things.
Excellent. So colors chosen based on their emotional impact, their relationship to how the artist feels. Colors that are totally divorced from, or mostly divorced from, topographical description, right? So if I were to paint Mary's shirt, and you've got this faux star butt logo on it, which we all know is a green circle, if I were to paint that, I wouldn't have to paint it green. I could choose a different color based on the feelings I want the viewers to take from the picture, or the feelings I had toward that, right? So we can assume that the pots in front of the railing outside the window, we're not necessarily reading left to right, red, blue, orange, blue. But that Matisse chose those colors because he wanted those juxtapositions on the canvas for one reason or another. He never will come out and tell us that they're supposed to do something, but he knows that they do something. There's a famous quote where he says, when I paint blue, it's not the sky. When I paint green, it's not the grass. Right? He doesn't want it to be descriptive of one subjectively viewed. He wants it to be utterly subjective, both on his part as the painter and your part as the viewer. Now, these ideas are there. We've talked about these ideas. That's Gauguin, isn't it? That's Van Gogh, who I've got up on the left, although somewhat more descriptive. Still, the green face, right? The scarecrow face. Yeah? These ideas are there. And Matisse, at this point in his career, is about 36 years old. He's quite well along. He's born in 1869, trained in the 1880s and 90s. He is the old man, as they would say, of the Fauve group. Everybody looks to him as sort of the leader, right? And he's well established by this point. He's an art collector. He owns Gauguin. He owns Van Gogh. He owns Cézanne. And knowing this, that he's a collector as well as a painter, helps us to understand, and knowing what he collected, helps us to then say, okay, he's doing these things, he can simplify his color. What he's doing is what's been done before, but it's a matter of degree. It's not that it's innovative as a choice. What's innovative is how far he pushes it. So that you get these fusions, right? There's incredible purple in the upper right corner, right? Or that shot of orange that goes all the way down. Look at this. This section right here. This orange that's part of the outside wall, and it just disappears, right? And he's just adding in because he's thinking not about what this describes in nature. Maybe something. He wants it what's there because he wants this sequencing of colors. He wants it there because this, right, it's about 2 feet by 1.5 feet. Very small picture. But that little two-dimensional surface needs some orange. Right? That composition, that amalgam of parts, needs an orange part. Maybe to balance out some of the oranges that are in the ones outside. So what governs his painting is not faithfulness to observation. But what governs his painting is an interest in how the different parts of the composition actually compose. Right? How they work together. Yeah? So let's here's another Matisse, right? I meant to, I don't know why I don't have a thing of it, I meant to delete it, but now it's here. This is a still life, it's tiny, it's not like this, at the National Gallery, it's called 1905. Where we can see, now that I tell you it's a still life, you can begin to sort of figure it out. It's hard to tell what the different elements are. There's a little teapot, green teapot on the right. But the other thing is harder to tell. And again, it's all color. It's just color, right? This is the utter explosion of color. Yeah? What do I want to say here about this, right? If we were to define their colors, there's a couple things that we could say. We've already said a few of them. James and Hunter brought things in. You'll notice that there aren't any blacks. You'll notice that when they apply the colors, not only are they not faithful to observation, but they also don't attempt to model things in 3 dimensions often. Things stay flat. So if you look at the pots with the plants in the foreground, the only reason they have any 3-dimensionality is you can see the top of the pot. There isn't a dark side and a light side to the objects of the paint. There is just the paint that has been inspired by the objects that he's painting. This is true for all of the people that came to be known as the Fauves in 1905. And we see it in his painting here too. There's no real blacks anywhere. The darkest green is simply sort of out of the tube forest green, out of the tube cobalt blue. Right? And then he lightens it, but he very rarely, if ever, adds any great amount of black to it. Nor do you see much in the way of blacks at all. The paint is almost always put down in incredibly jarring juxtapositions. Sometimes he'll put colors immediately next to their opposite on the color wheel. Oranges next to blues, greens next to reds. This makes the entire surface of the picture dance. Right? It vibrates. It's energized and alive. A lot of the canvas appears to be bare. Look at the strokes above the pots. The strokes that are meant to be or inspired by the flowers and the leaves. And you notice the spaces between them are nothing but bare canvas, which makes those strokes of paint exist as bits of color. Right? You become very aware of the degree to which the painting is not an open window in the town of Coulior. What the painting is a bunch of paint on a canvas. Right? And when you look at this and you get up into this section, you can't deny that that's what you're looking at. Because he's not even beginning to, look at this right here. Right? That's one stroke of paint where he's mixed a bit on his palette. He's got some green and some yellow on the top. Hits on the brush and he goes, wham. And that's it, right? And that's meant to be a leaf with a white side and a dark side, maybe. But it doesn't matter what it's meant. What it's meant to be is there's some yellow paint. Right? And he put it over another stroke here. And you can almost imagine him in the act of painting. Right? You can almost see it happening. That he's going to go through and he's going to pick up this color. Now, this is a really heavy one here first, and then probably the lighter one in the middle. Same brush, probably. Right? And as it gets emptier of paint, he's just bringing it up in here. And he doesn't want to, again, bring it and meld it together and finish it and provide it with a good clean outline and some drawing that makes it what it, more exactly what it is. What he ends up doing instead is it's focusing on the fact that these are just colors. And it's really, it's an homage to color. What is the painting at this point? It's not an open window. Although I think it's kind of important for him. The painting is just painting. Over on the left-hand side. Again, I brought this detail in simply because you can see some things, such as some of the reflections on the window are just three great flashes of pink. Right? This part of the flower here is more heavily applied. But the notice here behind it isn't. So you become really aware of this being a surface with some stuff on the outside. It's like looking at the bottom of your table and seeing the gum stuff on there. Right? That's what it is, as I'm looking at it. It makes you very aware that he's not developing the entire system, which would then make you think that you're looking at the object he's representing. By leaving parts of it there, you end up concentrating again and again on the fact that he's laid on this surface. Again, these incredible juxtaposition, right? This is a boat in the water with its reflection, and no, it isn't, right? And the amount of work he's giving it as well. So on top of that one stroke of pink, he's come back with a little stroke of blue over the top of it. We often see artists reworking things. You can see the very, very thin paint he started to sort of sketch things in with, but also the degree to which he leaves so much of it untouched anywhere, right? I'm also, when I first saw this in person, I was also struck by the way in which, when he paints, the stuff that's farthest from you is often the thickest paint. So those clouds are about as far away from you as anything in this picture. And at the same time, the clouds are the most thickly applied paint. Okay? And there isn't a rhyme or reason, it seems, to when it's thick and when it's thin. Some things are washed, some things are thick. And what's interesting about the distant things, the boats, the clouds, being so thickly painted, is that violates the way that we normally see things in 3D. If you got both eyes still, I don't like have a glass eye. Binocular vision, the way binocular vision works, right? is that our ability to perceive depth has to do with this distance, the distance between your pupils, relative to the triangulation. Okay? So this is why predators often have their eyes, why non-predators have their eyes further up and they can see the predators coming. So deer have their eyes way out here. That way when the wolves are coming, right, they can triangulate the distance. Yeah? And what it means is that the further something is from you, the less three-dimensional it seems. We've all seen this. Look to the distance, look toward Front Royal, and you see the mountains out there, they look flat, right? You're driving a car on the highway. When you're taking driving lessons, they tell you if you can detect movement in the car coming at you, you don't have room to pass. That was sort of the rule of thumb when I took driver's lessons, right? Because the closer it is, the more you can detect movement in space. Further away, the flatter. What Matisse does is he puts the things that you can see in three dimensions as the furthest things from you. And the stuff that looks the flattest, that's painted the flattest, is the closest to you, like those walls. All of this violates the way we experience the world. Things further away look flatter. Matisse's things further away are more three-dimensional. And the things that are closest to us should look more three-dimensional or flatter. All of that, again, says that when you experience this picture, as James's first comment, right? The color is one thing, but there's more to it than that. Especially with Matisse, there is this idea that you're looking at a surface covered with paint. That art in Europe, ever since the Renaissance, ever since Brunelleschi came up with a method for rendering things in perspective, ever since then, that's 1400, and even earlier, really, paintings in Europe gave you the idea that you were looking at three-dimensional space. That when you looked at the surface of the picture, you were looking through it to something that extended your space to a little room or a world beyond that. And what Matisse's paint does, others do as well, but maybe as strong as anybody to this point, is to remind you that when you're looking at a painting, you're not looking through anything. You're looking at something. That the frame is not a window onto an extended world. The frame simply encloses a two-dimensional surface covered with color. Okay. And what I think is really fascinating about this is, of course, he does this in a picture that's a window. Right? So we're asked to look through the window, but when we do, we see flatness. We don't really see through. I think it's really it's a wonderful sort of idea. And we see often that modern artists are used the theme of the window. And I think it has to do with this long tradition of what art does and how it does it. You look through the windows. Well, let's quickly look at Matisse's compatriots. Okay, in 1905, Matisse had been working for the summer in the south of France. Couleur is near the Spanish border, right? So it's down near Barcelona, okay? So it's the south of France comes around, right, goes down, and then Spain goes down this way. It's right before you get to the border of Spain. It's right there, okay? So down southwest of Montpellier. And he's working in the summer of 1904 and 1905. He's working with André Derain, who paints the mountains sort of looking the other direction, right? The mountains drop right down into the ocean. So this is the same area, the same town. They are not just accidentally there together, right? They're working arm in arm. And he, too, is part of the Fauve group. And you can see what we were talking about with Matisse. Bright, super saturated colors, often laid down in juxtapositions, often painted in a way where you're aware of it being paint rather than leaves or a mountain, by leaving lots of bare canvas. A minimal use of black. In both of these, almost nothing. Right? All of these are elements of what becomes known as the Fauve group, or the Fauvist movement. A few details again of these. Derain loves color. These are just explosive colors. And as we dive in close, it becomes impossible to tell what they are. in detail, that looks like the blue thing might be the sun, but it's not. It's like a boulder or something up there, right, that he's outlined. But really, it doesn't matter, right? That's not the point. The point is the paint. The point is the color. Look at the trunks of the trees, and you see that he's not choosing colors based on observation. He's not choosing colors based on description, objective reality. He's choosing them for the way in which they influence the composition. I have a quote from, people can find my notes, I have a quote. Here's a quote from Durant. Right? Painting is too beautiful to be compared with the object that you paint. The paint itself is too beautiful, right? The act of painting is more beautiful than the object you paint. You shouldn't even make a comparison. Right? He says it's imperative that we escape the circle in which the realists have trapped us. And the point is to free the paint, right? To allow the colors to have their own manifestation, rather than simply, right, if you use color to describe something, then the color is secondary. The thing you're describing is the most important thing. How do you get to the point where the color becomes the most important thing? Get rid of the description. Right? And as we get up close, you can tell he's reveling in these colors. He's worshiping them almost as he applies them to his canvas. Now, both of these artists, Durant and Matisse, admitted very, very strongly that one of their major influences was Van Gogh. They loved Van Gogh's work, have seen it on multiple occasions, and this is in the next notes I brought it in. But I also brought it in, I thought this was a great comparison. This just worked out really, really well. Right? If you look at how Van Gogh paints that fence, with shots of orange in amid the purple, the blue, and how Durant paints the lower left corner with this sort of stone path and purple shots surrounded by greens and reds. It's not a big leap in the intervening 20 years from what Van Gogh has been doing to what Durant is doing. There's a legacy here that's being worked on. Now, we'll wrap up with, we've got about 3 minutes, so we'll wrap up with this. The Fauve group got its name during a major exhibition in Paris in 1905 at the Autumn Salon. Now, salon just means room, and the word salon goes back to the 17th century. It was the name of the annual show sponsored by the Royal Academy. Okay, so every year, sometimes every 2 years, the Royal Academy of France, right, sponsored a major exhibition of artists. It was juried, it was very conservative, but it was, up until the middle of the 19th century, the one place to get your work seen. It was a major event, right? And to get your works bought, because it was a selling exhibition. Okay? Huge. Hundreds of pictures, thousands, like 2,500 pictures in this salon. And it was reviewed heavily. Think that in a day before, middle of October, Stranger Things Season 2 is opening on Netflix. Everybody's going to stream it all at once. Well, what if you don't have that? Then you go to the museum at the big opening or something, right? Like on Thursday. But there you go. Salon d'Automne is one of the offshoots of that. It's not based on the original Salon, but one of the things that the Impressionists did that was so important was they questioned the authority of the official Salon. When the Impressionists opened their very first exhibition in 1874, they opened it 2 weeks ahead of the Royal Academy Salon. They were trying to steal its thunder, right? 2 weeks ahead. So they're really they're poking the institution in the eye, right? They're flipping them off. And that began to break down the authority that the Salon, the official Royal Academy Salon, had on art display. And it became increasingly common to find other venues for artists to exhibit their work. And in 1903, started this Autumn Salon. It wasn't only avant-garde work. It wasn't only non-conservative. In 1905, when these things were seen, there was a retrospective of dead for 20 years. And Ang, the neoclassical painter Ang, one of David's pupils from the early 19th century, there was a retrospective of his stuff at the Salado poem in 1905. The room where these works hung had a Renaissance sculpture in the middle. Right? It was just no alternative then. They show there, in one of the rooms, the judges of the show put works that looked the same. So these showed up together with works by, I think, six total, 4 other artists in one room, all with this bright colors, super saturated, no blacks, no shading, right? Just a symphony, this explosion of color, all in one room. The critics hated it, right? They just dug into them hard. They said because of this Renaissance sculpture in the middle, there was this famous quote in the paper that they said, seeing this exhibit is like seeing Donatello surrounded by the wild beasts, right? Donatello parmi les fauves, right? Donatello surrounded by wild beasts. And that's what fauve means, savage, wild beast, right? That's what they were labeled. Now, in retrospect, they look relatively tame. 100 years later, right? 110 years later, they're relatively tame. Sometimes they're still a bit challenging, aren't they? I mean, I think Matisse's colors are kind of lurid, but I like them, But in 1905, this was out there, right? This was beyond the pale. And that's how they got the name. The name stuck. Now, before we quit, right, I know this is 2 things. One, while there were these 6 artists who knew each other, in this one room in 1905, that gives them the name. And the name stuck. There wasn't a group identity. There wasn't a manifesto. Right? There wasn't a membership list. There was just this idea of what makes the whole thing work. Right? That said, Matisse at 36 was very aware of what other artists were doing, and it started to figure out who was out there that was doing the same sorts of things he was doing. And he had a hand in helping to bring them together. Right? Even though there's no central doctrine. There's kind of this in the back of the book, which is to say, right? Unabashed, unfiltered, pure, bright, jarring color. Right? That's at the heart of it. That's never written down. Even though Matisse wrote his entire story about what his aims were. So these are 2 important things to remember. The movement of sorts. The movement that wouldn't exist is the one from Matisse. Right? But it's a movement without a core foundational document. And by 1907, within 2 years, they are all going to the It's over as soon as it starts. Right? Even Matisse, for whom color will remain the most important thing, is already by 1907 moving in a new direction. Right? So, I want to look more at Matisse. So we'll look more at Matisse on Friday. We'll probably only touch on Cubism before the end of class on Friday. But that's okay, right? Matisse is just, he's one of maybe 3 artists in the 20th century who you can walk out of this class seeing a lot of yeah, a lot of people. So, okay, I'll see you guys on Friday. We'll talk more on Friday, or I'll see you Thursday night at the opening at the Berry Gallery. And then we'll see you on Friday. So for the work will be up, you'll have a chance to meet the artist on Friday, on Thursday.